thank you so much for joining us today. We're very fortunate to be talking with State Senator Michelle Benson, a newcomer to the show here on Alpha News. She's running for governor, and many of you might have met her on stage during the debate that was about 2 weeks ago now, hosted by Alpha News and some other organizations. In this interview, we're going to talk a little bit about that debate and get to know the senator a little bit better and what she prioritizes in her run for governor. Senator, thank you so much for being with us.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. So right off the bat, what did I miss in my introduction? Because I don't think we've talked before. We've never had an interview before, and I want to sort of get our viewers acquainted with you a little bit.
Great. Well, I'm Michelle Benson, and I have a great Minnesota story. I see what is possible because of the life that I have gotten to live, because I grew up in this state. And that's why I am really passionate about the potential of our state and the ability to serve. I don't need a title. I just need to do the work. And so starting with, I grew up on a farm in a very small town, actually a township. So I get the rural way of life in a way that a lot of the other candidates can't. My family still farms out there. My brothers run the land that my mom and dad passed on to us kids. And my sister and her husband have a dairy farm that they're preparing to grow now that their adult children are coming home. I'm very excited about what I started to call a rural renaissance coming out of COVID. And I think it's going to be really important that we embrace the potential of the entire state. I had a good public school. I learned the basics of, language and history, and that prepared me to go to college. I went to the College of St. Catherine, got a degree in chemistry. While I was there, I met my husband, who was in the Navy, graduated from the Naval Academy. When he got commissioned, we got married. We've been married 30 years. We have 3 children. And after his time in the Navy, I got my MBA. I worked at Deloitte as an auditor and consultant. So I'm not afraid of numbers at all. But then when my oldest child was born, my husband was traveling a lot and I was traveling for work. And we decided that one of us needed to make our kids a priority. And my husband had to earn the money, and I got to be home and volunteer at school and participate in my community. And then in 2010, I ran for office for the first time. I don't know if your listeners remember, the Affordable Care Act was passed in 2009. Federal takeover of Minnesota's nation-leading healthcare system. Instead of yelling at the TV, I got up and ran for office, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are feeling that way right now about the federal takeover of everything. The world shouldn't tilt towards Washington as much as it is. It shouldn't tilt towards St. Paul, frankly, as much as it is. So I went to the Senate in 2011, was sworn in, served on ag and energy, health and human services. We can get into more committee service if it comes up, if it's relevant. But now I'm running because my life has been about service and trying to do the right thing, and the potential of every single person in this state, no matter where you live, if you are safe, if you have a good education, and there's a place for you to work, and if you can afford a home, you're going to have a great future. Minnesota needs to be a nation leader in our country.
So it sounds like it was one healthcare debate that originally motivated you to seek office. Was it another healthcare debate that motivated you to run for governor? Tell us what that decision-making process was and how much COVID and Walz's leadership during COVID played into that.
It was actually not just COVID, but frankly, I call it the head patting that Democrats tend to do, that people aren't capable of making their own decisions. We had this one-size-fits-all approach to COVID. We ignored some of the science that was going on in the rest of the world, particularly when Education Minnesota told Tim Walz we needed to keep our schools shut down, but schools across the world were staying open, and Catholic schools and private schools around the country were staying open safely. Look at what has happened to our children's mental health, to our children's ability to learn for that singular decision. And then Tim Walz let our cities burn. What happened to George Floyd's murder was horrible. But when protests turned into breaking windows and threatening lives because you were burning buildings where people were, something needed to be done, and Tim Walz let it go. And Minnesota is better than that. Our children deserve to be well educated. Our people deserve to be safe. And frankly, 12 years of Democrat governors and decades of Democrat control over core cities has resulted in a smothering in Minnesota where people's potential is continually put under this wet blanket. It's time for us to lift that blanket and get back to being a leader in so many ways in this country.
Absolutely. It seems like one area that you'd like to see Minnesota take the lead in a little bit more is agriculture. You mentioned it just now, and you had a very nice response to the agricultural question during the debate. That seems like one of the main issues of your campaign is reinvigorating our rural communities. I think you said during the debate something about how we lag behind other states in terms of agricultural production. Tell us about that.
We make it really hard to succeed in ag in Minnesota, where Wisconsin and South Dakota and Iowa realize that their ag economy is this key engine. We let people in St. Paul make decisions instead of trusting the people who bought the land, who do the work every day to make these decisions. And while it's not a key, put it on a walk piece and knock on doors about it, it is really important that we understand the underlying gift that our great soil, our talented farmers are, just like our forests, just like our mines, just like the people who create in the medical device industry. If we don't foster and encourage that kind of success, we're going to end up sliding to the bottom of economic growth year after year after year.
Why do you think it is the left and Governor Walz have abandoned farmers in many cases?
Because the left tells them that having cows produces methane that contributes to global warming, that farmers dump chemicals on their land and don't care about what happens. They are just ignorant of how farmers actually live. They are stewards of the land, just like people in mining don't want to pollute water that is adjacent to or relative to their mine, because they want a future in this state as well. Frankly, a farmer wouldn't put chemicals on their field because that filters down into their family's well. They're only going to do what is necessary and what is safe.
Yeah, I mean, they're living on the land and sustaining themselves off of it. It doesn't seem logical that they would want to be evil and to poison it like the left says.
Exactly.
Another question for you about the debate. I've asked all the candidates that we've interviewed after the debate about this. That first question asked by the moderator, Hugh Hewitt, he asked if basically Minnesota Republicans believe in the results of the election. That question, which I don't know if it was asked in good faith or not, has drawn a lot of media scrutiny, national media scrutiny, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about the fallout from that.
Well, we're going to have to answer the question, and the media is never going to be on our side. You notice Stacey Abrams still hasn't conceded for Georgia governor's loss.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton spent years talking about how 2016 was stolen from her. And so the media is never going to be our friend. Hugh Hewitt did follow up with me about it, and I said the Electoral College was certified. So we're going to, Republicans are going to have to focus on election integrity for this fall, but it's going to have to be things we can do. And that's what my answer was focused on. Poll watchers, election judges, making sure that our local county officials know you're watching and you participate so that nobody can cheat. We should make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And if we win a governor's race, the Secretary of State's race, we win the legislature, we can absolutely make Minnesota a state where election integrity takes away all question about who gets our electoral votes and who won majorities in the governor's mansion and in the House and Senate.
And these are not radical talking points. I mean, Amy Klobuchar was saying this sort of stuff long ago when there was some elections that she didn't like. But now suddenly when Republicans start saying, hey, we need free, fair, honest elections, the national media wants us to be treated like extremists of some sort. It's very confusing to me.
And the media, again, is not our friend. Yeah. So let's focus on what we can influence. Let's stick to the points that matter to bring voters into our party. We're going to have elections they can trust. And we're going to focus on issues that matter in their lives.
When it comes to bringing new voters into the party, what do you think those successful issues will be? If you become the nominee, what issues will you bring into a contest against Walz to appeal to some of those moderates living in the Minneapolis suburbs?
I think there are three basic things that every Minnesotan can agree on. You should be safe. You shouldn't have to worry that when you get home from grocery shopping, you immediately have to close your garage door to keep somebody from breaking into your car, stealing Christmas presents, or breaking into your house. Safety is going to be important no matter your zip code. When we see the failures of the Walz-led education system through COVID, We know that parents are going to want more control and more choice. And frankly, our kids deserve better. We are giving them a mediocre education. We're in the bottom 5 for minority reading scores. Democrats seem happy with that after decades of their control. And then Minnesota needs to be a place of great opportunity. We're losing the battle for talent to places like Salt Lake City, places like Austin, Texas. Our retirees are moving to Arizona, Florida, some to Texas, yes. So we're losing all this potential. At the same time, our people feel unsafe and our kids aren't being educated. So let's champion what Minnesotans care about: being safe, a good education for their kids, and the opportunity to succeed here in Minnesota.
Right, and I'm sure you've seen the recent reports that indicate that Minnesota, as you allude to, has had mass exodus and very little inflow of people. It's some of the worst brain drain we've seen in the last 30 years. What sort of policies would you recommend to keep those high-value citizens in our communities?
Well, first of all, let's get rid of the Social Security tax. It just makes us uncompetitive, and it chases out grandpas and grandmas. It chases out donors to our museums, to our nonprofits. It chases out volunteers. If you're semi-retired and you want to stay active, being involved in your local food shelf, your local church, or reading at your grandkids' school is a great way to be involved. We're chasing those folks out, frankly, and we're chasing some very successful business folks out by our ridiculously high tax rates. We are higher taxed than Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is happy to take our talent and our capital and our ideas. Same with, places like Texas. Zero taxes in Texas compared to a top 5 tax here in Minnesota. Look at where Utah is. Look at where Indiana is. Mitch Daniels set up Indiana to be really successful, and every governor there has learned the lesson. It's time for us to take some of these good ideas from other states and make sure Minnesota competes.
Even the Dakotas are relatively more free in various economic and COVID-related metrics than Minnesota. There's a lot of good places to go, and it's not by pure happenstance that people who have lived here for sometimes generations are deciding to leave. Very sad.
Frankly, you can go just across the border, and it's not that far. If you want to drive to a Twins game or a Vikings game and spend a weekend here in the Twin Cities, you can still do that. Have lower taxes for the rest of your life and still be really productive in some of these other states.
I know people that do that. They move just across the border, and it's an easy drive back for Christmas to see the family, but there's a lot more rights, just right across the line. It's very interesting.
Absolutely.
Returning now to the debate and also the primary race more broadly, a lot of viewers and observers of this race have been left with the impression that Gazelka and Jensen sparring is one of the key elements. Neil Shaw has participated in that sparring a little bit. What do you think about the current dynamics between these candidates and these political fights that are ongoing? I noticed that you've stayed mostly out of these spitting matches.
And when a point needs to be made, let's make a point. But I am here to remind folks that I am principled. You can look at my voting record. I am absolutely qualified to do this job more than anyone else on that stage. And I'm electable. We need to have additions to the Republican voting base, to conservative ideas being championed. We need to bring people in. That means we're going to need to build trust. And frankly, arguing with each other is part of this process, but it can't be the primary focus.
Sure, absolutely. You say that your voting record sets you apart. What elements of that record are you most proud of?
Well, if you look at the Conservative Union, they rated me higher than anyone else on the stage. If you look at the Taxpayers League, I've been consistent. I've had to take really hard votes, yes, because sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do. But the people in my Senate district, the people who follow me on social media, they know why I make the decision and how I make the decision. And you don't always get what you want, but people need to understand why you made the choice you did.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's say that you don't become the nominee, somebody else becomes the nominee. Would you continue, unendorsed in a contest against Governor Walz?
You mean go to a primary?
Yeah, like if you're not the primary nominee, somebody else is, would you run unendorsed against Walz on your own?
No, I've said I would abide by the endorsement. And the delegates who might be watching this, caucus goers who are watching this, remember, 2006, I went to my first convention here in CD6. 2014, I was Dave Thompson's running mate, and we fought a hard fight, but we abided by the endorsement and then jumped on board with the Jeff Johnson campaign after the delegate spoke. And then in 2018, with Jim Nash, I actually chaired the endorsing convention. The delegates and caucus attendees don't need to question where I stand on issues and how much their voice means in this process.
Sure, sure. Why do you think Republicans have largely failed in Minnesota to secure statewide elections in the past, and what can be done differently this time around, especially if you're the nominee?
Let's talk about being additive. We need to know what our principles are. We need to nominate a principled candidate, but it needs to be somebody who can reach voters who feel ignored, who feel afraid, who want something better, especially, moms with kids. If you see what a mom in Minneapolis went through this year, let's say she lives on the north side. Her school was shut down. She had to try to figure out work and helping her fourth grader learn. And then rioters burned down her grocery store. How is she supposed to take care of her family when her Cub Foods is looted and burned? Look at what happened to her life. She needs to know that somebody's going to listen to what's happening to her and not use government as a way to bail her out, but to see her potential and say, you know what? You are doing what you need to do. You are working, you're trying to educate your kids, you're trying to take care of your family and your home. Let's make sure that your work bears fruit and you're not threatened by gangs. The shootings that are happening on Broadway on a regular basis, the terrible looting that happened, and then schools being shut down on top of decades of mediocre schools in Minneapolis, failing schools in Minneapolis, and no way out. That mom needs choice more than just about anyone else in this state.
Of course, yeah. How would you use your gubernatorial powers to squash crime? Because it seems like Walz isn't doing a whole lot in that department.
No, he's not. Well, first of all, you have to make it clear that you're not going to tolerate it. And he's going to throw out the typical Tim Walz word salad. If you listen to him, he never really answers questions. Yeah. He does word salads about restorative justice and all the left talking points. Mm-hmm. We need to have justice and then, yes, mercy. So let's talk about justice. There are laws on the books. We need to support law enforcement as they are expected to enforce those laws. We need to make sure prosecutors have the right tools in place. So if the legislature needs to pass better gun laws, for example, so that gun charges aren't waived, because good guys with guns aren't the problem. It's the criminals who are getting guns that are the problem. And then as governor specifically, I would appoint judges who didn't deviate down on sentences, who saw that justice was part of their responsibility. And the Governor's Sentencing Guidelines Commission, frankly, shouldn't be deviating down on violent criminal offenses. If we need to revisit nonviolent offenses, I'd be open to that. So that's the justice side. And then on the mercy side, when you have served your time, there needs to be a path back. And I think that a lot of people, particularly dads coming out of prison that I've talked to, feel they don't have any hope. And Dave Osnick had a great bill that started that path out, that made sure that as you were getting ready to leave prison, as you served your time, that you were on a path that helped you get employment, that helped you be stable in your life post-prison. I joke, I never met a felon until I was in elected office, but really, when you've been in jail for a long time, your life is completely different. It's the moment you get out. We need to make sure that we do justice and mercy so that those lives can get back on track. They can become productive citizens and succeed the way we want everyone in Minnesota to succeed.
Sure. Bit of an unusual question, but would you support voting rights restoration for felons?
If we changed our parole and probation, so Minnesota does have felons who are out on very long probation guidelines. And when you have years and years and years of probation, that leads people to feel shut out on things like voting rights. So If you've served your time, if you're off papers, your rights should be restored. And we need to look at how long we keep somebody, quote unquote, on paper.
Yeah, because it seems like right now our jails are overcrowded, or they say they're overcrowded. So instead of keeping people in prison after they commit crimes, they release them on these long probations, which forces many people to recommit crimes because they're on probation, they can't get a job, they don't have any access to any sort of services or anything, they've got this black mark over their head, so they're walking around in society, but they're not really free to do anything because we released them early because of some sort of, equitable principle that the governor mumbled about, if I'm understanding this properly.
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
So let's review parole and probation. And when you're off papers, you should be allowed to vote.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Another question I've been asking all the candidates that we interview is, what steps would you take as governor to protect Minnesota economically from things like inflation and other destructive forces on the federal and global level?
Well, first of all, energy policy is something the governor does actually have a lot of influence over. So as family budgets are getting squeezed by groceries at a higher level, they're also getting squeezed because of the high cost of energy. Right now, the leftist energy policies are making us more and more dependent on sources like wind and solar. If you want to choose wind and solar, that's great. If your co-op wants to install wind and solar, that's great, but it doesn't provide baseload energy. And so baseload energy ends up being natural gas. So folks who are listening to this, your electricity is backed up by natural gas and your home is heated by natural gas. Putting all your eggs in one basket is not a good idea. So the governor needs to appoint PUC commissioners who pay attention to family budgets. I carried a bill in the Dayton administration called cost-based rates, so that they had to charge you based on the cost of electricity, so that people are more aware of what energy policy does to their family budget. Things like nuclear, while not inexpensive to start up, provide good baseload power and meet a lot of the environmental demands. North Dakota is sequestering carbon. So if you want something that doesn't emit carbon, but provides good baseload, we have a lot of options instead of this "you do what we say" mandate that's coming from the left. If you want to control the expense that is hitting Minnesota families, I think energy is a great place to do that. And then taxes, of course. The more we tax, the more we take, and that leaves less in families' pockets.
Yeah, I can anticipate your answer to this, but what do you think, speaking of taxes, should be done about Minnesota's massive $7 billion plus surplus? How did we arrive here where the government is very rich and the people are struggling under COVID restrictions? And what should we do moving forward with all that money?
Give it back. Yeah. First of all, Minnesota is a very high tax state. We should make changes to our income tax structure, reduce our tax rates so we're competitive. Now is the time to do it. We should cut Social Security taxes, as we talked about before, and the remainder we should give back. It shouldn't be used to start another new program. It shouldn't be used to redistribute wealth. If a lot of it's from sales taxes, let's do a sales tax blink off for a little while and make sure Minnesota families can keep their money.
Of course, of course. Is there anything that hasn't come out in this interview or in the debate or in previous interviews about yourself, about your campaign, that you think the voters, the Minnesota people, would be interested to know?
I think Republicans need to focus on someone who can win the most votes. And you know my principles. You know I'm ready to take on Tim Walz because I've been doing it for the last 4 years. I'm not afraid to be on the stage or in the room. And it's time for us to unite behind a candidate who can bring in voters that walked away, frankly, from the Republican Party.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. If people want to learn more about your campaign or they want to get involved in some fashion, where can they go to do that?
Well, Twitter at Senator Benson, Facebook, Michelle for Minnesota at Facebook, and then Michelle4mn.com on the internet. We'd love to have you join us. Caucus is February 1st. If you want to win, you need to caucus for a candidate who can do that. I hope you'll sign up to caucus with us at Michelle4mn. Go to caucuses on February 1st and get yourself or one of your friends elected a delegate.
Awesome. Senator, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for the interview, and I hope you have a very happy new year.
Hey, thank you so much.